Hi there, my name is Brenda Titus, and thank you for joining me for my video series, My Year Recovering from Retinal Detachment. This is the 17th video in my series, so if you haven't seen my prior videos, I definitely recommend that you start at the beginning and work your way through. As a reminder, this is my personal journey. It is no way to take the place of medical treatment, medical advice, medical intervention. If you have any symptoms of having retinal detachment, I definitely recommend getting medical attention as soon as possible. There are several links in the video description, so if you would like to start there for information as well about retinal detachment, that would also be very helpful. So today's video, I am currently talking about recovery from my second retinal detachment. And basically, the second one happened about 6 months after the first one. So in this video, I wanted to talk about getting back to life and getting back to work. Now, there are a few factors that impacted my decision making through this process. And if I hadn't already had the first retinal detachment, I might have done things differently, but then I used a lot of the information that I had to help me make the decisions that I was making. And additionally, I now had two eyes that were impaired. So it's really important when I talk about this as my journey and my circumstances, it would be a different recovery if it was only the first retinal detachment. So I just think that's important to take in mind. So because of this, I did find some ways to have fun and get out and see my family and friends. It was the summertime, and so I did things that were less scary. I've talked before about, being in crowds was a little bit scarier because I couldn't see very well, quite frankly. And so it just made me very nervous to be out and about too much. So I stayed home a lot, but I would get out for meals, see my parents, see my nieces and the rest of the family, and just kind of do little things that we could. And the big things that I really dealt with was that I needed a lot of help. I couldn't drive for quite some time. Really couldn't drive much at all, in all honesty, but especially that first couple of months. So when I needed to go to the doctors, I would need a friend or family member to take me, or I did rely quite a bit on getting rides with Uber and Lyft. So that was fun. And I also relied a lot on my husband when we were out, or actually anybody, because actually the first couple of months, my vision was so impaired that, I would literally freeze. So we'd be walking in some place and I'd kind of like, oh gosh, how am I going to get around? How, there's people, how do I, navigate the circumstances? And that was pretty scary. But I had a client who had experienced a similar situation, and I understood and remembered how distressing that was for her. And I realized that I thought about her every time I took a step that was terrifying, because it really was terrifying. It was very scary to, maneuver through life there for a while. But it was important to me. The things that I went out and did, I wanted to do. I had, theater tickets and family events and all of those things. And so, thankfully, usually in places that I was familiar with. If we went someplace that I wasn't familiar with, I would need help finding the restroom. I'd ask people, well, point it out to me, and then I can make it. Because I could make out bigger environments, but things like which is the correct restroom or which way would I go within the restaurant. Reading menus was very hard, and so it was just. I mean, that's just the truth. It was a challenge. So I didn't do a lot. I'm still not doing a lot. I, enjoy being home and being cozy and all of that. But if it's a play, I've gone to a couple movies. I see my family and all of that. But so I did go to a friend's house, and I realized that I think we just kind of had like a summer pool party, and that was it was intimidating to walk around and navigate, the steps and the stairs and not falling. And they were very, very gracious about, helping me get around. I went, and visited various family members' houses, and I know their home well enough that I can make it around. And I learned a lot about the idea of, what it's like to be visually impaired, and especially for people as they get older and they start, having just age-related vision issues where getting around my home, I feel comfortable, I know my space, and so I can get around, and that was fine. It was great. Being in my office, the same, because I'm comfortable with it. I know where everything is. I did find it to be a challenge. I went to a grocery store with my husband one day, and I said, well, it's fine. There was something that we needed, and I said, I will lead you to the place in the store. It's a store that I'm more familiar with than him. And I said, I'll lead you exactly where it is, and we'll get whatever it was that we were there for. Well, they had reorganized the store, and the thing that we were looking for wasn't in the right place. And I really learned a lot from that, about especially when there's change, that it can be so hard and frustrating, but especially for elderly people or people who are dealing with visual impairments, because where I expected it to be, it wasn't, and then I had trouble finding it. I actually did that. I went to that store again during Christmas, and I walked around the store several times. Then I finally grabbed somebody and I stood in one section. I said, the thing that was here, and I told them what it was, and I said, where is it now? And they pointed, and I said, oh, the place where whatever used to be. And they said, yeah. And so you think about when you realize how we navigate the world, and that is kind of with our subconscious minds, right? Like, we just memorize where things are in the grocery store or within our lives. And so we're kind of able to go in a little bit of autopilot. But then when things change around us, like I can do that minimal amount of driving, like to get to my office because it's so close. But then if there's construction and I have to go a different way, then that would be a challenge. So it's kind of, just interesting things like that. So the other part that I wanted to talk about was how much time I took off of work. So I really understood after the first surgery that I went back too soon. And I really struggle with this, because the truth is that I'm very fortunate. I'm self-employed, so I get to call the shots. But I also feel very strongly about being able to help my clients. And I already, just like in January, I'd had to, drop people midstream, and then I wanted to see them as soon as possible to get them started again. And with this second retinal detachment, there were people that I was supposed to see after a vacation. So it was people who hadn't started yet, and I was going to need to push back their start date. And so that did afford me a little bit more of an opportunity to make a decision about when I was going to go back. And I really had to think about, how poor my vision was at that time, and waiting and knowing how long the bubble would take for it to recede and all of that. And so I looked at my notes, and I believe that I went back, just checking again. I took about 9 weeks after my surgery before I went back to work. And I actually was seeing a very minimal amount of clients at that time. So, it is something when I talk about the struggle that people go through. If I'd had a traditional job, I probably hopefully would have been able to like be on disability. I never talked to my doctors about that because of my situation. It it wasn't something that was going to work for me, but that would be something that I would definitely say other people would look into. It's also true though, I mean, if I had a traditional job, I mean, I would have blown through a lot of that, my rights for disability, going through a medical situation the way that I did. So it's amazing when you think about it that way. So I did, like I said, I went back and really more cut back on my hours, cut back on my time, and was very careful with how I took people on through the next several months, and even still actually 6 months later. So as I'm still waiting on the glasses and my full vision situation to get resolved. So during that time, though, after the 9 weeks, I also got the referral to see the doctor about the cataracts. So I mentioned in a prior video that I was so excited when had left for my vacation after the first retinal detachment, and I was going to get to talk to the cataract surgery, and I thought that was going to solve all my problems with repairing my vision and all of that. Well, once I had the second detachment, they said, nope, no, you're going to have to wait until you're recovered enough from the second detachment before you can get the cataracts taken care of. And ultimately, I don't know how much of a delay it was. Some, I probably would have like fully recovered from my first retinal detachment and the cataract surgery, and had glasses before Christmas, before the 1 year mark, even if I hadn't had the second retinal detachment. Instead, I'm sitting here recovered from the both cataract surgeries, but I don't have glasses yet, and now it's been over a year. So yeah, it did play out into the timeline. So I guess that's important to take into consideration. Either way, I did get a referral to the cataract surgeon, and so that's going to be kind of the next set of videos that I'll be doing, talking about about cataract surgery. And it was an interesting process, but a lot of people go through cataract surgery, so I'll be able to talk about that both from the place of retinal detachment as well as cataract surgery as well. So I hope that you're enjoying these videos. I hope that you're learning some things. I've thrown in some things that I've learned in my career as a hypnotist, as well as throughout, just because I've shared that before. It's a part of my life. It's a part of my day-to-day. And so sometimes when I talk about the different emotional parts or, different things like that, it'll come up. There are different videos that I'll be doing in the hypnosis office, talking about more of those things after I've completed the eye videos. So I do appreciate you joining me. And like I said, I'll be back for another series, talking next about dealing with the cataract surgeries. So I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thanks.